I'll tell you what, probably the only reason I got signed to MCA Records was because of George Strait. You know, he was on fire and he was doing traditional country music, Texas type music. And at the time, they were looking for somebody that could follow that formula that was a little younger.
Yeah.
And so I had to start dressing like George Strait and wear the starched Wranglers and I mean I couldn't be seen dressed like I am now with an untucked shirt and rolled up sleeves but this is how I always dressed back in Beaumont in the beer joints.
Right.
So for a long time I had to wear the George Strait costume is what we all called it back then. Yeah, and it worked. But eventually I got to thinking, George Strait looks great like this. This is his style, but it ain't mine.
Right. Right.
So,
So
so
I,
in
I
a
get
lot
the
of
sense
ways,
there's a real sense of disillusionment because when you come to Nashville, it's the music
they
business,
weren't
and you
about.
realize the
It wasn't
emphasis is the
about me.
business. It's about the
It
business.
was. It wasn't about me. It was what was selling at the time,
Right.
and that's what happened over the years. I had 5 #1 records right off the bat, and then music started to change a little bit. Other artists came in that were selling more records than me, and that were hitting the charts, and so they started trying to guide me in different directions, and so that's when I realized, and this is just a few years after I got started with some big hits. I'm having hits with Too Cold at Home, Old Country, Bubba Shot the Jukebox, Brother Jukebox, and things like that. And then all of a sudden I'm told, well, we gotta change formats here and do things a little different and try something that's not so country. And boy, that just really disappointed me.
I'm sure it wasn't a fun conversation the day somebody suggested don't want to miss a thing.
Yeah, that's a great story. I was first off, I've always been an Aerosmith fan. I love Aerosmith. I always did. Love all types of music. And Steven Tyler has always been one of my heroes. Since I was just a little kid, I grew up with all that Aerosmith music. And then we were trying to finish an album. We hadn't been on the charts in quite a while. We weren't smoking up the charts anymore. We had Shania Twain and Garth Brooks doing all that. And I was wanting to do country, hard country. And it just wasn't cutting it anymore. Well, Mark Wright, my producer then, called me one day. He said, "Have you ever heard that song, that Aerosmith song, I Don't Want to Miss a Thing?" We were just about to wrap up recording a new album. I said, "Yeah, I've heard it. It was #1 then on the pop charts." And he said, "What do you think about it?" Well, I didn't really care for it that much because it was not something that I'm used to hearing Aerosmith
Wasn't
do.
walked this way.
Wasn't rocking.
Yeah,
Wasn't
walked this
rocking at
way,
all.
yeah.
I thought, well, I don't really care for it because it's not what I'm used to. Well, it went #1 for Aerosmith. It was their first #1 record after all them years. I couldn't believe it. And so I didn't want to do it. I felt very uncomfortable about recording the song because I thought it was way out of my style. And but I had a good friend at the time that I called to get his opinion. I called Waylon Jennings. And he said, "Well, you got to do what you got to do to stay in this business these days, son." He said, I said, "Waylon, I don't know if I can sing that. It ain't my type of music." He said, "Son, you could sing the goddamn phone book. You set your mind to it." He said, "Quit listening to Aerosmith and just sing it the way you want to." I said, "Boy, that's going to be hard to do." And he said, "I'll tell you what I'll do." He said, "I'm going to come down to the studio when you cut that song." And he did. So when I'm singing I Don't Want to Miss a Thing He wasn't there for the tracking session, but and I struggled through that. Boy, it was killing me. But when
Killing you just because,
it,
not vocally, but just because you felt like you were selling out who you were?
I felt like I was selling out, and I felt like that it was not my type of music, and I thought I was going to make all my hardcore fans mad at me. George Jones got mad at me for doing that, and so but Waylon was there when I went to do the vocals, and he sat there and watched me do them, and he kind of gave me a kick in the ass because he'd cut a lot of stuff that wasn't country. I knew that, crossover stuff.
Right.
I wasn't trying to cross over to anything. I was just needing a hit. I needed to be on the charts, and most of all, I needed to stay on the label.
Right.
So I did what I had to do to stay in the business at the time.
And it turned out to be a
Didn't
big
sell
hit.
any albums.
No.
Didn't sell any records at all. But it was #1 for 4 weeks.
Right. It got you a ton of airplay. And
So
it accomplished.
it's not what I needed at the time, in my opinion.
Do you do it in your shows now?
Not very often. Well, every once in a while when somebody requests it. But it's funny because once I did record it still sounded like me singing it. I didn't sound
Absolutely it does.
anything like Steven Tyler.
Well, no. I mean, as the old statement goes, with a country singer like Mark Chesnutt, you couldn't go pop with a mouthful of firecrackers. So,
No, exactly.
So the notion, I mean, and so it sounds like Waylon gave you great advice, which is take this song and make it a Mark Chesnutt song.
It's exactly